Well, God sets standards for Christian leaders that are higher than those for Christians who don't find themselves in a leadership position, actually in every area of life. They're called to be holy, to be set apart, to be godly, in all areas, to be gifted for the work that they have to do. And therefore, it shouldn't surprise us that the Bible sets the very highest standards for sexual integrity on the part of those who are in Christian leadership. So the Bible recognises that there may be some Christian leaders who are gifted for singleness. Paul speaks about that in 1 Corinthians chapter 7. And if they find themselves in that situation, they're obviously to be sort of observing celibacy and not engaged in inappropriate sexual relationships. For those who are in church leadership, in 1 Timothy chapter 3, one of the criteria is that those who become elders or pastors and teachers in the life of the church ought to be, as the text puts it, sort of a one-woman man, which doesn't necessarily just mean that they've only been married once, but it might mean that they're committed to the person they are married to and they have no eyes for anybody else whatsoever. It's not necessarily saying that they can't have been widowed and then remarried, but it's saying that they must be utterly committed to the one person that they're married to. So the highest standard is expected there. The New Testament teaches that if Christian leaders fall into sexual sin, they're to be disciplined and removed from their ministry. And again, that just indicates the high standards that are expected of Christian leaders. Paul urges all Christians, but especially those in leadership, to flee from sexual immorality. So they don't even give a hint of any sexual lack of sexual integrity and disobedience to the biblical commands about the appropriate context for sexual relationships. That's partly because Christian leaders are there to set an example to those that they lead. So leadership is not just about teaching the principles, but it's about modelling them to the congregation or to the people working in our organisation. So if Christian leaders aren't observing the very highest standards of sexual integrity themselves, then they won't be able to lead and model a godly Christian life to others. But observing those high standards doesn't mean that Christian leaders have to pretend they have no struggles. So it's not about saying that Christian leaders have no struggle and they don't have to fight against temptation. Sometimes leaders can give the impression they've escaped that battle and somehow they're above it. No, the Bible says we need to be honest about the struggles, but Christian leaders ought to be those who by the Spirit are putting to death the desires of the flesh and are modelling a life of battling against temptation and resisting temptation to those that they're leading.